just need a couple of them. I get this beautiful face over here. You see that?
Oh my gosh.
You got the beard lined up. Looking
Thank
smooth.
you. I feel pretty.
Fresh edge up.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty.
How's the rest of it go?
Feel pretty and something. I'm gonna get some of that Carmex.
Huh?
I'm gonna get some of that Carmex, brother.
What Carmex?
You just had some, brother.
Bruh.
You don't do that sharing stuff? I'm
Hey.
playing, man. I'm playing.
Hold on. Hey, check it out. Check it out.
I'm just playing.
Here's what I am doing. Look, I ain't got nothing left, but I'm on this
You
very
using
last little bit. I'm like,
You're using the hell out of that.
I ain't got nothing left in here. Lick your
Man.
lips, LL Cool J.
Hey, for real. All right, mic check, mic check, mic check. Welcome back to another episode of the Justin Dunning Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Dunning. With me today, I got a very special guest. Before we start, let me just give the small disclaimer. I put a tweet out there the other day, and I basically said that I wanted to get some different people on the podcast who weren't just athletes. Somebody put a request in for guys around the program, but even outside of just that, I just want to bring interesting conversations to the podcast and to the microphone, to the viewing community right now. And so, you know, with that being said, the very first guest, I'm not going to introduce him too much because I'm going to let him talk about himself. My man, Mikado Hinson. Mikado, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for finally having me on the podcast. I guess I'm guest
Don't say finally.
287.
You guess, what is it, 16? 15? So you guess 15 is episode 16.
Lucky number.
Hey, for real. That's your lucky number?
No, but
It's a lucky
appreciate
number.
you having me.
Yeah, man. I wanted you to be one of my first guests on, but I told you kind of about it. Like, I wanted to get a bunch of athletes on, some of my friends, kind of build up the viewing community a little bit.
Yep.
I think we got some viewership now, so, I mean, they either love me or hate me by now. So it's like, you know, whatever, man. But what I want to do, I feel like you play such an important role in your position. What is your official position at Texas A&M?
Well, if you're into long titles, it's Assistant Athletic Director of Player Development.
Okay.
If you want to shorten that down, Director of Player Development. Under that umbrella is chaplain, mentor, character coach, really kind of like life coach off the field.
Right.
And then I get the chance to cheer the guys on when they're on the field.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how I would describe your position, I've referenced you a couple of times when telling my story because I'm not even sure if I told it to you directly about the situation that occurred whenever I was about to retire after my third surgery, me coming in to talk to you and then you telling me to come to the team meeting and just kind of how that whole situation played out. And we've had some really cool conversations, you know, and
Right.
A lot of them not really football related, even though you work very closely with the football team. It's life, man. And I know that for myself, when I retired from the game, I was always searching for impact.
Right.
You know, I've been searching in different areas. I did financial planning because I was finding a way to impact people's finances. I was trying to come on the radio so I could just talk and share my opinion and reach a certain amount of people. And so my whole big thing has just been trying to actually reach out and search for in what way can I reach the most people?
Right.
And I mean, if I had to assume that had to be what you were thinking whenever you decided to kind of take up a role like this.
Yep.
But I kind of want to backtrack a little bit. Give me a very, not brief because I don't want to rush you through it, but kind of talk to me about a little bit about your background. You were born and raised in Kansas City, correct?
Yeah, town outside of Kansas City, Olathe, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah, my father, Carl, my mother, Donella. I come from a biracial background. My father's African-American. My mother's Caucasian.
Right.
I have an older brother named Chris who still lives in that area. My parents are still there. You know, we were raised in a good blue-collar, hardworking home. My dad just retired from the grocery business after 50 years or so
Okay.
in the grocery business, and
He was second bags, or he was really?
he started out there,
Yeah.
and then he ended up running stores. You know, something cool about my dad is they would always, when he got to the point in management where he was running stores, directing stores, they would always send him to stores that were struggling financially, and he always brought them up to a very large profit.
Okay.
And the biggest thing about my dad was he said, there's no, you know, right? It's not rocket science. There's no magic formula. You got to just love the customers, keep a clean store,
Right.
and have little employee turnover. So my dad would be out there getting grocery carts, and he said, I'll never ask my employees to do something that I wouldn't do.
Right.
And so you'd see my dad stocking shelves. You'd see him, you know, if they're short a cashier, he'd be there doing cashier. So he would do anything and everything in the store.
He was
His
all
employees
around.
would turn around and say, "Oh, Carl will do it."
Right.
So I'm not going to complain about doing it. And then my mother worked in the occupational therapy field for a long time, and she's starting to see the finish line as far as retiring goes too. So was born and raised Olathe, Kansas. Went to high school, Olathe North High School. Was involved with sports my whole life. Really looked up to my brother. He was a really good athlete as well. And, it was crazy. I was born in 1975. Mm-hmm. My parents were married in 1971. Okay. And that was a time when interracial marriages, people didn't have a big smile on their face about them. Right. They frowned on it. Mm-hmm. They're not smiling a whole lot now about it, truth be told. Yeah. But
it was less tolerated in those times.
Yeah. I mean, my mom, from teachers at, their school, saying things. The cool thing is both my grandparents, so my dad's parents and my mom's parents, both they didn't mind what was going on. Okay. Now, so my brother and I being raised basically in the late 70s, 80s, we were called every biracial name in the book. Right. I can distinctly remember, I can see where I was when probably the most hurtful name that was ever said to me and my cousin Donnell. And I could point at the guy's home. I mean, I remember where we were, dribbling a basketball down the street from my house to Donnell's. And, Donnell kind of mouthed off at the guy, and I'm like, Donnell, let's go. We were probably 11, 12 years old, something like that. So, but it was really from both sides. It was crazy because in high school, if I would hang out with my white friends, my black friends would say something. If I hang out with all my black friends, my white friends say something. It would be like I was kind of caught in between two worlds. But at the end of the day, man, Carl and Donella raised me just to respect people and don't look at, color, all those things. And so I had friends of all ethnicities. And then just to fast forward real quick, I thought I wanted to be a chef. Okay. So in college, I went to culinary arts school. So my only day off, I was working 50, 60 hours a week as an 18-year-old kid. Okay. Man, miserable. Cooking for 500 people I shudder to even think about that.
Where were you working?
At a country club.
Okay.
Bro, my chef would put us, like he'd say, I was the apprentice, right? So you get the grunt work, man, just the grungy, grimy, making salads for 500 people. He'd say, hey, there's going to be a bar mitzvah, and they want, there's 500 people coming, and they want a scoop of sherbet in a champagne glass. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Mm-hmm. But the sherbet can't be melted, so you need to go in the freezer and scoop these out. So I'm in the deep freezer. Yeah. Just trying to get scoops out into sherbet glasses. And I would sit there and just like, this is horrible. I thought I wanted to do this. The big thing is that I found out quickly that I'd rather talk to 500 people than cook for them. Right. And so I was in culinary arts school for a year. Then I transferred. I changed my major to mass communications. Okay. And I figured I wanted to go into some type of communication, public speaking, all those things. Right. And so I kind of started that journey. Well, my life changed as a freshman in college. I'm going to tell this real quick. My life changed as a freshman in college. I gave my life to Christ as a freshman. So grew up good, moral home, but grew up unchurched, right? So, but my freshman year of college, gave my life to Christ and started growing. And some things, I was like, okay, so what do I really want to do? Right. So I left the junior college I was at in Kansas, went all the way to Norfolk, Virginia. I went to an HBCU, Norfolk State University.
Wait, why Virginia?
Well, I wanted to go as far away from my doorstep as I could. Okay. And I went to the water. I mean, I was right on the edge. There. Yeah. But I'll be honest, I wanted to go to an HBCU because the high school that I went to was predominantly Caucasian. And I wanted to experience the other side of my culture. And I also knew that they had a student-led radio station. Okay. And so I went. I had only visited one time, man. My parents went and dropped me off. Yeah. It was before cell phones.
So you out there.
Yeah. And I literally said to myself, sitting on a park bench, well, you sink or swim.
Hey, for real.
So I started swimming. And I have yet to live back home since then. So once I left home, I've been gone since, it was 1996, right? And then I was doing a radio show every day. Right. But my senior year, I started feeling a tug on my heart, and I didn't know what it was, but it was a tug to do ministry.
Okay.
But I knew it wasn't, really just in a church, preaching, pulpit ministry, stuff like that. And got connected with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and end up moving to Houston, Texas right after I graduated, moving to Houston, Texas, doing inner city ministry with FCA. I was newly married and had a 9-month-old child when we moved to Houston. Okay. And there's a lot more to the story, but
yeah. I don't mean to cut you off or anything.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so whenever you got exposed to the ministry, you said you had a tug at the heart.
Yep.
Was it a mentor or something? How did you get exposed to that?
No, I just remember. Well, I'll tell you how I got exposed to FCA, but I just remember interviewing coaches all the time after, because I do play-by-play and color commentary and things like that for my university, and I remember interviewing coaches and things like that. And I would always, like, if after a loss you could see them down, so my heart would always go out to them. Yeah, so really, to be honest, it was hard for me to ask tough questions because I also knew they have families.
Yeah.
They have children, and things, and there was no social media. There was internet, but it was kind of in the infancy stage.
Right.
But I had a hard time, and my heart would always go out to these athletes. I'd see them get hurt or whatever, and then you have to interview them, and my heart would always go out. And I'd always find myself doing a little bit of counseling while I was interviewing, things like that. And I'm like, oh, I may be good at this counseling part, but I'm doing horrible at this job of being a broadcaster. And so, my grandfather, this is pretty special to me. My grandfather fought Parkinson's disease for 19, 20 years.
Okay.
And it got to a point where he would forget names, but he said to me, hey, don't you know someone who works with FCA?
Okay.
And it was one of those deals. It was like, I felt like God told him that because he would forget a lot of things. He was kind of towards the end of things. And I said, wow, Grandpa, you're right. And so I connected with this person that had a brother that worked for FCA, Milt Cooper, and introduced me to a guy named Kerry Casey, who ended up becoming a big mentor in my life.
Right.
And they introduced me to FCA. Then I interviewed, did a phone interview for Inner City Houston with the FCA director at the time, Mike Myers. And then he flew my wife and I down and said, we want to offer you this position. And I had no idea how to do FCA ministry.
Right.
But I just knew that God called us, and so we went. And man, we didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, man. We packed up our Ford Explorer and a U-Haul truck. The Ford Explorer 3rd gear didn't work. It was stick shift. That's old school.
Right.
And we moved to Houston, and we started. Man, I remember going to Madison High School, Milby High School, Furr High School, all those inner city HISD schools. And I had no training. I just knew I had a heart to do this, and I had a calling to do it, and I had the passion to do it, and just started growing from there.
What was the process like? Because I mean, that's obviously a long story, and you obviously had a lot of work to put in. But what was the process like from going to working from the FCA ministry with the high schools to kind of getting to where you are now?
Yeah, the head coach at the University of Houston at the time, Dana Dimmel.
Okay,
he's now the head coach at UTEP. He called our offices and said, hey, I would really love to have someone to do chapel for our team. So it wasn't a full-time role, but it was come in, come to practice once a week or so, but also come to the games, travel with the team. And so I raised my hand. It was like we had an office full of people, and I raised my hand, and I was like, man, I'd love to do that. Like, I got saved in college. I love college-age people.
Right.
And I was only 24 at the time, so I'm like, I'm not far removed from this group. But the first chapel assignment that I had was Houston Baptist University women's basketball.
Okay.
That was my first chaplain assignment. I would go during home games, go into the locker room. Coach Shane Brown, man, that's my guy to this day. And he would, once the girls got dressed and they're all ready, to get their game plan, I would come in and do a 5 to 7 minute chapel service for them before they would hit the floor.
Right before?
Right before. Okay. Literally right before they'd play.
It was like part chapel, part pump-up speech.
Yeah, it really was. I was like a hype man, sharing the word. But so that was cool. And then I started doing dual chaplaincy with University of Houston, right? And then it was almost like a dual tri-chaplaincy because I became the chaplain for the Houston Rockets. With another coworker. And so we were, man, just ripping and running, doing the city FCA ministry, and it started to evolve into chaplain ministry. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, I love this. Like this. I'm now starting to find my sweet spot.
Right.
I love the middle schools and high schools doing FCA. That was cool. But man, I loved being around the college athletes.
Right.
It was really cool. So it started to evolve into that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got to a point, I worked for 4 head coaches at Houston. And then Coach Briles was there, and he said, "Hey, we want you full time." And I'm like, "Wow, I want to be here full time."
My man.
Right. So 2004, 5, something like that, I became, full time over at Houston. So they gave me an office there, and I started just doing full time. What I'm doing now was doing it at the University of Houston.
I mean, how thankful were you for that opportunity that Coach Briles gave you?
Yeah. People don't know this, but I was on the verge of moving to Las Vegas to be the FCA director of Las Vegas. Flew out there twice, 2 interviews.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one, my wife and I went, and it was kind of like a little wine and dine type deal, like showing us the city. I'm like, okay, this is Vegas. All I've seen is a strip. Right. And so it was like, okay, cool. There's Caesar's Palace. There's MGM Grand. Okay, cool. Yeah. But I was like, I need to, FCA ministry is not done on the strip. So I said, I need to come back out and meet people, things like that. And that second trip, no lie, my first meeting was sitting at a Starbucks with a regional guy, and then we met someone in the city that was involved with ministry there. I got a sickness to my stomach. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here. This isn't my job. I'm not called to be here. Literally, and I had 2 days of interviews and meeting people, and I dreaded every second of it because I'm like, I called my FCA director. I'm like, Wade, man, I don't want to do this.
Okay.
Like, I'm not called here. And he's like, great. We don't want you to leave. When I got back a month later, Coach Briles and I went to some AFCA coaching convention, and it was for chaplains and head coaches. And he leans over during that meeting and said, "Cado, we need you full time now." And I'm like, wow. I said no to Vegas. And right when I said no to Vegas, a month later, that happens. And so I slowly transition out of middle school, high school, full-time college at U of H. And then Coach Sumlin came, and he came to A&M. I prayed about it. He asked me twice to join him at A&M. Prayed about it, said no. Prayed about it, said no. Stayed for 2 more years with Coach Tony Levine. And then in 2014, we moved up here.
So isn't it crazy? It's crazy to hear you say that story, but I feel like whenever you hear people tell their story and you kind of look at your own life, you see parallels.
No doubt.
And isn't it just crazy how small things happen that affect it in the long term? Small decisions you make set up all these different opportunities for you, man.
It's never the big thing.
Yeah.
It's always the small little turns. It's the small little turns in the road of your life. And in life, you're only going to have probably 8 to 10 big, huge moments.
Right.
But it's those small decisions that are going to determine where you go. It's going to determine your destiny. The big things are going to happen along the way. Big, good things and bad things. They're just big moments. But it's always the little things. You look back, so now I'm 43, starting my 20th season as a chaplain now.
Right.
I look back and I go, man, it was the little conversations, meeting someone, or the person who came to my office. It was never the big thing. Where I am right now, it was not the big thing.
It's crazy to think about, though.
Yeah, because I think about, here's this little biracial kid from Olathe, Kansas. Who would have ever thought, that, man, it started with a 7th grade girl sharing her faith with me. She died our senior year. She got cancer, went into remission, died of pneumonia our senior year. My freshman year of college, I gave my life to Christ. Thought I was going to be some big-time boxing broadcaster, right?
Max Kellerman.
Right? And it was just little twists and turns, that, here we are.
I'm glad we brought this up, too, because this is kind of a great segue into where I want to go next. Because I think not just myself, but specifically talking about myself, one thing I struggled with when I was younger was that whole idea around destiny and not really understanding how much of my life was mapped out, what was meant to be.
Right.
Am I actually making these decisions that's messing up my life or making it better? And so I remember specifically, so around my third ACL tear, I was going through the whole mental process. We talked about it a little bit, but I didn't know whether or not, because I'm a strong believer in the fact that if you're attempting to do something that's not meant for you, it's not going to work out. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, I was like, man, I've torn my ACL 3 times now. Is this guy's way of telling me that this is not meant for me? or is this some more adversity? Because it's like I'm no stranger to adversity. I've been dealing with it my whole life.
Right.
Different things when I was a kid, as I've been growing up, I've been dealing with adversity my whole life. And so it's like a tug of war between, is this adversity that I'm facing, or is it something that it's God's telling me this is not my destiny, it's not meant for me? And it was always a real struggle for me trying to understand that. I have a clearer view on it now, but I want to hear your opinion on what, as it pertains to destiny. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I believe when you talk about destiny, destiny, you can use the word destination.
Okay.
Is it my destiny? Is part of my life, as my life travels, the adversities that I go through, the highs and the lows, is it part of my destiny? I truly believe this, that nothing is unused. I think everything that we go through
is for a reason.
Absolutely. And I believe that it can be used to strengthen us. It can be used to strengthen someone else. You tearing your ACL 3 times, yeah, it sucked. And the rehab and all these other things, one, you learned a lot about yourself.
That's true.
Right? We're tougher than we really think we are. There's more to us. But then also, you're going to be able to encourage someone else when they tear their ACL or get injured. You say, look, I know what rehab's like. Exactly. I know those things. So I just believe that all things work together for good. Do I believe all things are good? No.
Right.
But I believe that all things will work together for good. I think we can take a lemon and make lemonade. Right. I just truly believe I'm a glass half full guy. So whatever happens to us, I just am a firm believer. It's like, okay, even if it was outside of God's will for our life, He'll allow certain things to happen because it's all part of our development. Right. There's certain things that I think we could probably avoid. Right. Because we put ourselves in different situations, but I still think that as long as we're breathing and stuff, an opportunity, man, God can use that. I always tell people this. I remember my wife and I went to Yellowstone, and we snowmobiled with some friends out to Old Faithful. Right. The whole goal of our snowmobile trip was to see Old Faithful, that geyser erupt. Yeah. Right. That goes off a few times a day or whatever. Right. It was a 31-mile ride. Oh, my. Right? And so we're riding through the snow, got these big old snowsuits on, we're rolling. And then our guide would stop us, and he would point over here, and there'd be a whole bunch of elk by the river. Or he'd point up there, there'd be an eagle sitting on, you could see him in a tree. Or there'd be bison in the middle of the road, and you'd have to stop until they move. All these things we got to see on our 31-mile trip. If we were solely focused on getting to Old Faithful, we would have missed all those things along the way that were there for us. It was all part of that journey. Right. And so sometimes we want to skip over some of those things that happen, good, bad, or indifferent. But you say, no, man, that's part of what made me make me who I am. We always want to get to the end. Okay, I want to walk in my destiny, and I want to achieve these things. Well, there's steps to everything. Right. We couldn't get to Old Faithful without traveling 31 miles. Right. And on that journey, why not enjoy it along the way? Yeah. Why not look at the bison, the trumpeter swans who are in the water, the eagle that's in the nest up in the tree? Why not enjoy all of those things along the way? You'll get to where you're supposed to go. Right. But enjoy the journey. Enjoy where you're going. So at the end of the day, you'll say, but there's certain parts of my journey, man, that I want to forget. Well, I don't, as I've grown older, I've learned to appreciate and respect a lot of the adverse times that I've gone through in my life because what they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's true. What you go through, because you can look back on it and say, man, I am not where I want to be, but gosh, everything that I've gone through, man, it's really helped me along the way. Right. So yes, I believe God has a perfect plan mapped out for all of us. Do I believe that we can get off of that path and start traveling on our own? Absolutely.
That's what I was just about to ask.
Yeah. Right. I'm a big believer in we've got to make adjustments in our life to line up with His plan and purpose. I don't believe God will adjust His will to match up with where we're traveling.
See, that's a unique perspective because a lot of people, I had a friend that I was having this conversation with a while back, and his whole point that he was making, because I used to always say, that was meant to happen, that was meant to happen, that was meant to happen for myself. And then he started to pose the question to me. He's like, okay, if everything's planned out for you, then you're basically a robot. You're just going through life and you're living out a story that's already been written for you. And I started to think about it and kind of the whole the philosophy I guess I came up with about it is, because I do feel like everything in my life is happening for a reason. I feel like there are specific chapters in our life that God has written out for us. But in terms of what's on the actual pages, we have the opportunity to write that for ourselves. Is that kind of what you feel the same way about that?
Yeah, I mean, you think about a coloring book.
Yeah.
It's already been shaped out and mapped out. But we get to color it.
I like that.
And the thing is, sometimes we choose what colors we use. So we get to add our own little personal touch. That's the thing. We aren't robots.
Right.
We have the power of choice, the power to prefer.
Right.
You know, so if God has a plan mapped out, but he gives us the freedom to color it and to make it how we desire to look. We're not robots because we all have personalities. We have sense of humors, the things that make us laugh, make us cry, make us mad, all those things. We are emotional. We are human beings.
Right.
And no, God, we're having a God conversation, which I love, but man, I just believe that God enjoys watching us grow.
If you don't mind sharing, because I know we've all been through struggles and whatnot. Did you ever have an extremely low point in your life where you were really, really down? Maybe did not lose faith, but starting to question?
You know, I don't think I've ever. I don't think I've ever gotten to a point where I've questioned God. But yes, I've had low moments, and my low moments came from trying to do things the way I wanted them done. Low moments that came from I wasn't taking care of myself, but I was always taking care of everyone else.
Okay.
And so I was draining myself.
Okay.
I've teetered on that line just through studying and knowing how I felt. I was teetering on the line of depression a couple of times. And I went to the doctor and got blood work done, checked all my hormone levels, all those things. And because I was available all the time to everyone, that I wasn't taking the time out to read, breathe, exercise, any of those things. And so I never questioned God. It wasn't a time that I never felt that he wasn't there for me or I was starting to lose faith. But I do remember that there have been times, and it was probably over the last 10 years, that I got to a real low point and I dreaded people coming in to ask for counsel because I was I was an empty cup and I was trying to pour and there was
nothing there.
There was nothing there.
Right.
And it got to the point, man, I'd start forgetting, like I had my desire for anything. I was just ready to go home every day. But the good news is I addressed it. I have a real strong wife who helped through it all.
Right.
And I had mentors. I had people that I was very open with, and very transparent with, because man, I don't wear a cape, man. I'm not Superman. I'm a human being that has emotions. I have good days and bad days and all that stuff. So I never questioned God's presence. I never questioned, was he real?
Right.
Once I received him, I've always known that he was there. But there were times I've gone through dry season. No one's exempt from the dry season.
Exactly. But see, the thing is, if I look at a guy like you, not asking any questions, it's like you would assume that there are people who are exempt. And so I think it's really, really cool. And I think it's necessary for us to share those kind of stories. Because there are people that might be listening, like, this guy has a wonderful life. He does this. He's always happy. He's smiling, always talking to people, cracking jokes and getting his lunch taken away. But it's like, I don't know. I think sharing those stories helps people connect and they realize that they're not by themselves, man. And that's another big reason why I want to start the podcast. It's like, I got a bunch of stories about stuff that I've been through that I haven't shared like that, and creating a platform for myself and then for others to even have these kind of conversations. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. One thing that I've also realized about myself is, and it's not diagnosed anything, there's nothing to diagnose, is that I really, really value my alone time.
Ooh.
I guess I'm what you would consider a public figure. I do a lot of public speaking. I'm passionate about it. I love it, whether it's corporate, and for a team, whatever it is, I love it. But I also love going home. I love being at home, my wife, my 3 kids, I found out, I started reading up on it. I found that I'm an extroverted introvert. Okay. People say, oh man, I thought you were just straight extrovert. No, I could speak to a crowd of 1,000 and get a lot of joy from that. But you put me in a crowd of 1,000 and I'm gonna find the corner to stand in.
Right.
Because being around a ton of people, just when they're around you, it low key kind of freaks me out. And so I always like to find the corner and just people watch, observe, stuff like that. But I don't have to go shake hands with everybody. People think that about me and be like, dude, like you're being quiet. Like, or you're in your office and it's quiet. You just got music going on.
Right.
I value that.
Yeah.
I cherish that. And I think everyone who thinks that they're just always got to be blowing and going, blowing and going, blowing and going, you better take some time to unplug a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Or life or your body will make you unplug. That's what I learned through my process and I wasn't depressed. I wasn't all the way there, but I was getting to the point where my body was like, you better slow down or I'm going to slow you down. Just reading different things like that. I read a book called Adrenal Fatigue and everything on that list, I was check, me. And I was like, and I remember asking my doctor, what's the end result? If I don't get a handle on this, what's the end result? And the doctor looked at me and said, clinical depression. You will say, all right, let's get up. Time to start the day. And your body will say, nope. All right, get up, shower, all these other things. Let's go. No, because you've pulled from every source that fuels you for the day and it's empty. So you're trying to hit the gas and there's no gas. And your body will say, you better sit it down or it'll sit you down. Right. So I value those little times where little checkpoints where I can kind of refuel a little bit. So that's a little something about me that I don't think I've ever doubted, but I've definitely felt the effects of being available all the time and counseling and mentoring people. And
it's a challenge.
Oh, it's a big challenge.
And let me share two things. I know we've talked briefly about this before, but I don't think I've directly told you this. So I had a class, I have a minor in leadership. And I took it was like a leadership kind of behavior class, a personality class, where basically the whole premise behind it was that in order to be a great leader and to work with different people, you have to understand what your personality is. Because if you don't know who you are and how you lead best, what your strengths are, then you can't effectively lead people. And so in this class, we basically did the whole breakdown with the introverts and extroverts. And we took all these different tests and exams and whatnot to kind of figure out what you were. And so after all these tests, we basically split up. They said that extroverts go to one side of the room, introverts go to the other. Okay. This is what we thought we were at the time. Right. And so then the professor pulls up a long list of all these different questions that she has to ask. That she asks, or these statements, let me say. She's like, if you like doing this, or if you like sitting in your room, if you'd rather sit in your room than go out, go to this side of the room. And people are starting to switch sides. She asked another question, people are starting to switch sides. And after she gets all the way down the list, people are starting to remain on the sides that they're on. Introvert or extrovert. And then I find that I'm one of the guys that keeps kind of going back and forth. It's like, okay, I mean, I do enjoy talking to a lot of people, but then I also enjoy, if I had the choice to go to a party or sit at home, I'd rather stay at home. Right. But it's like, if you're at a party or you're center of attention, well, I might be the center of attention, you know, a handsome looking fella like myself. And so it's like, I was going back and forth and I started to think to myself like, dang, maybe something is wrong with me. And it's interesting to hear you say that too. And it's just like, I don't know. I was thinking to myself, do I just, because sometimes I feel like I'm in that mood where it's not that I dislike people, I just don't feel like talking. Correct. I want to be by myself. And that kind of goes to the whole idea of meditation. And so I recently started meditating. This was probably about a year or two ago. Because you talk about the physical demands, and we've talked about it a little bit. That's the whole situation that the comedians go through. Feeling the constant need to put on a performance, or you have
always got to be funny.
You have to have that certain persona, and you have to be that every single time. And like you talk about being the public figure, you know, people know our face and they see us in public and they want to talk about whatever. And taking the time to unplug and meditate is essentially just getting back to yourself. And I was listening to a video. There's a guy I follow on Instagram named David Meltzer. I don't know if you follow him. So this guy, he is like the CEO of a sports agency or something like that. But he was telling a story about a taijutsu master that he met. And he's like, he came into this class and this guy took on like 20 people. They were coming at him from all directions. Right. He was just taking on like an action movie, Bruce Lee, like knocking all these people out. And he said he went up to him and asked him, he was like, how do you take on all these different targets that are coming at you, all of them moving? And he said, I don't take on all of them at once. He said, I simply take on one and find my way back to the center.
Yeah.
So essentially taking on a problem, then finding your way back. Because if you're out there trying to fight off every single thing, you're going to get lost. You're going to get caught up.
Right.
He said, finding your way back to the center. And I relate that directly to meditation, because it's like you attack a problem throughout the day, but then taking time to recollect and get back to yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, do you do any meditation at all?
Yeah, as part of my prayer life, and as part of as far as scripture, it's a lost spiritual discipline. There's a book called Celebration of Discipline by Richard Foster.
Right.
And meditation is one of those lost arts. And to meditate, there's a lot of, people do transcendental meditation, different types of meditation. But for me, biblically, to meditate is to ponder on the word and to just kind of just get into a point where you're just quiet. But, I might just start reciting a scripture back and forth. Okay, God, you told me to trust you with all my heart. What areas of my life am I not trusting you? And I kind of just get quiet. And so it's almost, it's not a humming, it's not a chanting or anything like that. It's for me personally. Yeah, it's not for me. Some people, do that, and if it brings them peace and things like that. But yeah, absolutely. I think everyone, they'll say, "Oh, meditation, that's so new agey and that's weird." No, it's get quiet, get still the busyness of life, and get quiet for a little while. Focus on breathing. Focus on nothing, and just get back to your center. Get back to your true north.
Right.
It's a recalibrating, so to speak.
Recalibrating yourself. I used to have a Bible study. He was our coach at school, but he also led our Bible study at church. And he used to always talk about. He used to always say that you're praying for guidance. You're praying to hear something from God, but you're always talking. You're always moving around. You're always doing stuff.
Yeah.
How can you hear whenever you're constantly talking?
Yeah.
If you shut up and listen, sometimes you sit and actually think, things will start to come to you.
Yeah.
And that's how I've come to a lot of realizations in my life.
Yeah.
And moving on to the next thing, I told you I was going to tell you about my dream, and I just remembered this. So, all right, I don't know your whole view on dreams, and this might sound really weird to a lot of people, but I have a dream journal at home. Okay. I have a bunch of dreams, and I've always felt like, I used to have very, very vivid, wild dreams. Like sometimes I couldn't really tell if I was awake or not. But now I've gotten to a point where I can tell that I'm dreaming, but they're extremely vivid. Okay, it's like I'm walking through a movie kind of. And I've always felt like my dreams had meaning to them, like they were messages. Okay, and so this is a repetitive dream I've had, and there's not many of them. You know, if you have a repetitive dream, I've had it 4 to 5 times maybe over the span of like 4 years, and so I guess like once a year maybe. And I recently had it about when did I see it be? About a month ago, around that time. Okay, so. I guess the first time I had this dream, you talked about being saved at freshman year of college. I got saved or resaved, I guess, my senior year of high school. So around the same time period. And around that time, I had this dream that I was in this huge mansion. Well, not a mansion, but let's say a really, really big house. Okay. Like around your house's size. So a really, like a big house, but it wasn't like a nice house. I mean, it was nice, but it was dark. It was really, really dark. And so imagine like where you would see like a vampire live or something like that.
Okay.
Dark, old, but a big house. And so on the inside of the house, I'm walking around. I wake, like inside the dream, I start inside the house, but I know that it's really big. And there's this huge, windy staircase. Okay. And so I approach the staircase and I start walking up. And sometimes you do stuff in dreams and it's like, you know that it's the right thing to do, but you don't know exactly why you're doing it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay, so I'm walking up this staircase. I know that I'm supposed to go up this staircase for some reason. And I get to the top of this staircase, and I notice on my right, there's this huge door. So, I mean, might be the size of like this whole set right here, a huge door, okay? White, gold outlining, huge. I'm like, man, it's pretty fascinating. And on the left, there's a regular sized door. It's a smaller door, just an average brown door, and it's just sitting there. And now I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, and they're kind of split where the staircase is right here in the middle and the doors are split on opposite sides, okay?
Right.
And so now I'm sitting here thinking like, dang, what door should I go through? First of all, I don't know what this dream is about. I don't know why I'm in here anyways. What door should I walk through? And it's obvious. I mean, if you have a door over here, a dark corner, a brown door, I mean, you're probably not going to go through this door.
Correct.
People talk about walking towards the light. I mean, this is big, shiny, door. I mean, this is amazing. I have to walk through this door. And so I go over to this door. I open it up, and it's just a room. Okay, nothing in there. Just an empty room.
Okay.
And so I walk in. I'm walking around. I'm looking. I'm like, oh, this is cool. But more so, I don't know. It was nothing there. I remember being really, really shocked and kind of surprised about it. And so then I walk out and I leave. Go back to the other door. I open it up, and there's this long hallway, and there's doors on every single side. Okay.
Okay.
And so there's I say there's probably about down this long hallway. It's like 6. It didn't really make sense now that I think about it, but there was like a door over here, door over here, door over here, 3 on each side, and then at the end there was another door. And I remember just thinking, like, man, I probably should have came through this door in the first place. Look at all these different doors. Like, these are all different rooms I can go into. I should have came into this one in the first place. And at that point, I just wake up.
Right.
And so this is a repetitive dream I've had. I've had a bunch of other repetitive dreams, but this is one that, I mean, I had it, and I've never really even thought about it until just recently. And I was like, man, this is really, really symbolic. And how I choose to view my dreams, I obviously don't look at them in a literal sense because a lot of crazy stuff happens in my dreams. I look at them more so in a symbolic sense. And what do they symbolize? Okay. So the first time I had this dream, I was at a point where I was kind of transitioning in my faith, kind of developing that relationship with God. And not to say I didn't have a relationship. My mom used to take me to church all the time. I love you, mama. She used to take me to church when I was a kid. But
dragged your butt to church.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, there's a difference in your parents taking you and putting you into that environment and you finding that for yourself.
No question.
Because whenever you get older, you're in the decision-making stage. You want to find out, what do I actually want to do?
Yeah.
And so when I kind of reached my senior year, that's when I made the decision for myself. That's the first time I have this dream.
Right.
Okay. Later on, it happens a bunch of different times throughout my career. And then I have it again the other day, and I'm thinking about it like, man, what does this mean? And so after sitting and thinking about it, my whole philosophy around the dream, what I think, I'm obviously presented with 2 options on what to do, okay? What seems to be the best option, this big shiny door
right.
that everybody would want to go through. It leads to an empty room, okay? Which, I mean, it's like a room. You live in there. It could be good or bad. Or you go to the other door. It has all these different options in there.
Right.
And so what I took away from that was, man, don't judge a book by its cover first off, because people do. They judge the doors and they say, okay, this path is better than this path. But I mean, what are the different paths? What do they offer for you? I guess maybe is that poorly worded? And I don't know. What do you take away from that?
What'd you have for dinner the night before you?
Don't play with me like that, man.
Was it pizza? What was it?
I don't know, man. Maybe I think my food was drugged. Maybe had some.
No, you know, one, I'm not an interpreter of dreams. But after hearing what you talked about, it's true. You said that first door was really big, broad, and I started immediately thinking that broad is the path that leads to destruction. Many will find it, and then the last part of that is narrow is the path, you know, that leads to everlasting life. I'm probably not quoting that exactly right, but you know, the low road. It's full of people, and it looks fun, and it looks beautiful, and it's appealing, right? But only to find out that it's empty. But the one that is less traveled, the high road, you go through that. One, you didn't need to think a whole lot to go through that wide door because it looked so appealing. Walk on in. But that one that was in the corner was a little smaller, dark. You had to think, So not many people probably would choose that door, but to go in there and then to know that there are options, there's more. Right. There's more to it than just walking through that dark, narrow looking door. Right. That there's more. If you just have the faith to step on the other side of it, there's so much more. I'm thinking of C.S. Lewis, you know, Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. If you just took the time to go through the wardrobe, you find out that there's so much more beyond. But so many people get scared, whether it's their dreams, right? They'll say, no, I mean, I don't know what's on the other side of that door, so I'm not going to take the next step in fulfilling my destiny or my dream. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the easier way, the more appealing way.
The obvious way.
The obvious way, right? And so I don't know exactly what that means for you in your life. That's kind of what I was gathering.
Right.
I was trying to personalize it. What would that look like for me?
Right.
Is that there's so much more if you just take a step of faith and you don't know what's through that door. You had an idea what was through the big broad door.
Yeah.
But
I think for myself, even, kind of relate this directly to my story.
Right.
Football.
Yep.
I think football, the big door, it's like, okay, I'm playing the SEC, one of the big dogs,
Yep. Going to the league.
Going to the league, get this money, all this. And then I have the media path or a different path where I get a job and I just impact some people and do all this, yada, yada, yada. And
you find out that you're so much more.
Yeah, you find out that you have so many other things that you're capable of doing.
We're multidimensional people. And if we put all our eggs in one basket and say it's this or nothing.
Right.
Man, there are so many more avenues that are going to lead to other things.
And I didn't realize this until late.
Right.
I thought football, and I talk about this a bunch on here, but I thought football was the only way.
Right.
Because one, I wanted to create a better lifestyle for my family.
Right.
I wanted to create a better lifestyle for myself, get some money. And I don't know, because I had the talent, it seemed like an easy path. And so when I retire, it's like, man, now I got to go down this dark path. I don't know what I want to do. It's something that's kind of demeaning or underneath me or whatever. And I guess changing my perspective and actually walking through the other door has opened up a bunch of different options for me, man. It's been really crazy. My 2018 was wild in terms of the different transitions I made in terms of where my mind was starting out the year. If you had talked to me fresh into 2018 about where my mind was on a daily basis and then compared it to where I was in December, it was just completely different, man. I went through a lot of different transitions. And
at the end of the day, now you look at the 3 ACLs. Yeah. You have scars.
Battle scars.
Scars tell a story.
For real.
I don't know about the interpreting of the dream, but I just, it's been cool to see your growth. To be on the outside of your world looking in, we laugh, we joke, we do all those things. We've served in Haiti together, man. We've done a whole lot of stuff. Been in the training room after you tore your knee up. Ooh. All those things, bro. We've done all those things, but it's been cool on the outside looking in at your growth. It's been cool to see you develop as a man and develop, in your career and all those things that you're pursuing. So that's been cool to be able to celebrate. One of the cool things about my job is that I get to see young men grow into men, and then I get to celebrate them along the way, along that journey, along that path. So that's been pretty cool.
Man, you just took me back. When you just said the training room thing, I completely forgot about when I tore my ACL that third time in the indoor. You actually walked me over to the training room.
Right.
I completely forgot about that. Sitting on the table.
Yeah.
Oh, that was.
And I'll be honest, bro. I didn't have a ton of words for you.
Yeah,
it wasn't a time. I didn't have a whole lot to say. Sometimes we just need to know someone's there.
You know what I do remember though? I remember feeling like you felt my pain, and I remember feeling like you wish that you could help me. And I mean, for me in that moment, that was enough.
Right.
Because you don't always know what to say to somebody, but I think just kind of sharing that pain and knowing that somebody is there, like you just said, is big.
Learning to sympathize and empathize with people.
Bro, you know what is so crazy? The next thing I had written on here was empathize. I was just about to talk about that. And the reason I wanted to talk about that is, okay, not just myself, or I guess myself included. I know sometimes that back to my class I took, this leadership class, we did a strengths assessment, okay? And
like Strength Finders?
Strength Finder, yeah.
Yeah, I've done it.
Out of all these strength tests, among my top 2 or 3 was always empathy, okay? And when I always looked at it, I was always confused because I was like, why is empathy on here? I feel like empathy, everybody has empathy, And so to me, in my mind, I was always thinking it's human nature to empathize with others, okay? And so my perspective on empathy is that it's human nature to try to want to feel for somebody else and want to take on their pain. But I think the challenge, and it's been a challenge for me as well, I've been realizing this as of late, the challenge is who you empathize with. It's easy to empathize with somebody who has a similar background to you, or maybe is experiencing something that you've experienced or you are experiencing right now. Right. You can empathize easily with those people. I've been learning recently, man, just talking to people, and this kind of relates directly towards the Haiti trip as well. How do you empathize with someone who maybe you didn't feel their pain? Maybe you didn't go through what they went through. Right. It's more so you have to put yourself in their situation and in their shoes.
I know that every single one of us in this country could use a good dose of learning to empathize and sympathize with people. I think that if we can just sit down at a table and start having conversations, we'll realize how similar we really are.
Not so. That's one of my biggest things, man. Because I feel like there are so many layers of BS around all of us that from the outside looking in, we look like we were so different. But as you get to sit down and, I mean, me and you, I would feel like we were different. But I mean, as we've had various conversations in the office and even right now, man, it's like you start to look at the parallels. And like I said earlier, you get to start seeing that, man, okay, he went through this, and I also went through this too. It's like where I thought we were so different, we are very, very similar. And I tell another story that I haven't told on the podcast yet, but whenever I retired from playing, I found a mentor. My girlfriend texted me. Anyways, I found a mentor basically. And from the outside looking in, I was kind of, I didn't know, he lived in Austin. I live in College Station. It's like, should I go meet with this guy? I don't know.
Right.
There was a lot of differences between us. He was very wealthy. I grew up, not poor, but struggling. He was a white dude. I'm a black dude. We just grew up two totally different ways. And it's like, I'm thinking we're extremely different, right? And I finally muscle up enough courage to go out there and visit. Okay? Right. Go out to his ranch. We sit out there, we talk, pour up a glass of scotch, sit out by the fire and just have a conversation.
You trying to act like just you a grown man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got to put my
Lord.
But no, we started talking, and I mean, he's obviously very wealthy now, a millionaire. But he started talking about his days, and he actually went to A&M, came here. He was broke as well. He started working a job in college, okay? Ended up getting another job after college that was in the same industry. Yeah. Long story short, he ended up taking over this, some things weren't going his way at the job that he was trying to make changes, and they were trying to stay in the same position. And so he went and started his own company doing the same thing. Ended up being very successful. But I started to see, because for me, the career paths were very minimal in terms of what I could actually accomplish outside of football. Right. I wasn't aware that I could accomplish different things. And so I guess being exposed to, he was an entrepreneur, came from a similar situation, which I was not even aware of until talking to him. Right. And I always viewed very rich people as elite, special. This is how they were born. I don't know if you had that same viewpoint growing up, but I didn't see many people who were wealthy that made it for themselves. And so it was kind of like, unless they were a rapper or a football player or something like that, it's like, I don't know. And so I got to see, he was telling me his story about how he rose to basically success. Right. And from a similar situation. And it gave me hope because now I can see where he came from. And so I think that was a really big, not a challenge for me, but a really big eye opener in terms of actually just sitting down and talking to somebody. Because from the outside looking very, very different. But I came away from that like, wow, I can accomplish the same thing he accomplished.
No doubt.
But you seem like let me move on. Two more topics I want to talk about.
I want to say one thing about mentors. I've had some of the best mentors in life that they're perfect for me. One of my mentors, Kerry Casey, I mentioned him earlier. He's the CEO of the National Center for Fathering now, but he was on FCA staff, all those things. And he would always say these things. He wrote down on a napkin one time for me, perceptions make the world go round. Okay. You have a perception about rich people. So it just becomes your perception, then it becomes your reality, right? Without communication, people grow horns. Okay. And I was like, okay, explain that, Case. He said, if you don't communicate, you automatically think the worst about someone. The horns
That's
show.
True. That's true.
He'd always say, perceptions make the world go round. So you got to sit and talk. Stop having the perception because you prejudge a certain person, prejudice. Things happen, you prejudge people. Yeah. And then without communication, people grow horns. If we don't talk it out, if I don't get to know your story, you get to know my story, we could start having perceptions and start thinking the worst about the other person. Our minds automatically kind of go that way. Yeah. Man, I bet they didn't even work hard to earn that money. I mean, you don't know anything about their story, right?
I wonder, is that human nature, or
I think so.
Is that just the times we live in? Because, I mean, it's such a judgmental society.
I think so, because I think by nature we're selfish people.
That's true.
And so
that's true.
We want to celebrate people, but we'll hate first. You know, man, I bet they didn't. Man, they don't even know what hard work looks like. And you don't know that through blue collar, working hard, they pulled themselves up by their own bootstraps and busted their tail. Yeah. One of the most successful, and I want to talk about my other mentor just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
But there's another gentleman who's been very instrumental in my life. He dropped out of college, right? He started selling cars. it eventually landed him down the road of owning multiple dealerships.
Okay.
Very wealthy, very successful guy.
Mm-hmm.
And people see him and go, man, you live in this sweet house in Houston. Man, you've got dealerships in Vegas and Cleveland, all over Houston. Man, you were rolling. But people don't know that it started out with him dropping out of college and started selling cars. You know, he worked his tail off to get to where he is. But people see the end result. They don't know about the climb.
Yeah.
They see what they consider the top of the mountain, quote unquote, because I don't think there is that. Yeah. But they say, oh, man, you've made it. But they don't see the climb. They don't see all the people along the way that helped him. Pastor Danny Green at Skybreak Church said, if you ever see a turtle on top of a fence post, you just got to remember it never got there by Hold on. If you see a turtle on top of a fence post, you got to know it didn't get there by itself. We all need people, right? My mentor, who's now in heaven, his name is John Randalls. Okay. Everyone just called him Randalls. You talk about not looking like your mentor. My mentor was an older white guy, looked like a hippie. Well, he was a hippie, kind of. Okay. Long hair, was bald up here. He called it a skullet. And he would always say, hey, look here, dude. What's going on, man? I mean, he talked just like that.
That's awesome.
He spoke such truth into my life. I mean, not just hearing him preach or speak at camps and things like that, one-on-one conversations. He poured so much into me. And as he always said, you are who you are, you is who you is, you ooze what you ooze. When life squeezes you, the real you always comes out.
That's real.
He said, you could walk around all day. You could say, look here, here you go. Look here, baby. Man, I'm toothpaste, baby. I'm toothpaste, baby. I'm toothpaste. Then life squeezes you and ketchup comes out. Guess what you are? You're ketchup.
Oh, that's real.
You are when you get squeezed. He would always say that. He'd say, Mikado, you got to know 3 things in life, baby. You got to know who you are. You got to know who you serve. You got to know where you're going. Speak truth to me. He'd say, awesome. There's 3 things in this life you ain't kinda. You ain't kind of pregnant. You ain't kind of married. Right. And you ain't kind of saved. Oh. Either you are or you ain't. That was how he talked. Yeah. Those are public things that I would hear him say. Right. Are you a shark or are you a feeder fish? Are you an energy producer or are you an energy consumer? When you're around, do you produce things for people? Do you produce life for people? All those things? Or all you do is you walk around like those little remora feeder fish and just consume, consume, consume. He'd always say, be an energy producer. And then I remember we'd talk one-on-one. And he said, let me look at those eyes. And I'd look at him and go, yeah, you got those eyes. The eyes of a dangerous disciple. He said, don't you worry about being a casual Christian. That's what he'd tell me. He said, but you got to be a dangerous disciple. I mean, you got to have those scary eyes. That's what's going to light this world on fire. These are things he would pour into me.
Oh, this dude is a gangster.
Bro, when my wife and I drove up to Lubbock, Texas for his funeral, First Baptist Lubbock was full of people he poured into. But every time he was with you, he made it seem like you were the only one. Wow. He never said, well, I don't have time because I'm pouring into these guys here in West Texas or I'm going over to Dallas. He would always literally talk to you like you were the most important person in the world. I learned a lot from that.
Man, that's how I want to be remembered.
Bro, let me tell you.
What kind of legacy I want to leave.
I still talk about Randalls to this day. People ask, there's been a whole line of people. My dad taught me a ton, right? Hard work, treating people with respect, not letting people run over you. My dad, Carl Hinson's a real cat. Yeah. Right? He's real. Yeah. Wade Hopkins with FCA. He taught me a ton. My pastor in Houston, Alan Rice, I learned how to preach. I learned how to share the gospel because of Pastor Alan Rice. So there have been people along the way, but the guy who really took me under his wing of like chaplain ministry and kind of what I do, John Randalls. He's in heaven now.
That's awesome, man.
But I'll never. I still listen to old messages. We were his final chapel at A&M. He canceled all his other ones. Wow. And he had an elder from his church in Lubbock. He had cancer. Drive him from Lubbock to College Station, and we were his final chapel service before he went home to be with the Lord. Yeah, it was some months later that he died, but he had to cancel them all because he just chemo, radiation, just struggling. Yeah. He was hurting while he was doing chapel for us. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh. I mean, like, I'm honored. he drove down just to speak to our team, and he was hurting bad. He no longer had the skullet. He's bald. He just had a little soul patch right here. That's all he had left as far as hair was concerned. And he was special, man.
John
Randall's, yep. I'll never forget, and I hope that God will use me in such a way that I can impact a couple of people along the way like he impacted me.
If you start talking about legacy, you start thinking about, the way that you are touching people right now and the kind of impact that you're having right now. And I came across a video the other day. One of my favorite actors, Denzel Washington, he was giving a speech. I think it was a
commencement.
Commencement, yeah. And he was telling a story, and he was talking, and he said that he said one thing I realized when I was younger is that you'll never see a U-Haul driving behind a hearse.
That's right.
And I'm sitting here thinking about it like, is it the size difference? I'm thinking like, have I ever seen a U-Haul behind a hearse? And then he continued to talk, and he was saying that what you make in life, you can't take it with you after you're dead.
That's right.
And so basically, what you do for yourself while you're here dies along with you, but what you do for others lives on forever, man. And I don't know, it makes you start being conscious and self-aware about what you're actually producing and putting into the world.
And what's really important.
Exactly. Where does your values lie, man? It's an interesting subject, man. I do a lot of thinking about that. I have been doing a lot of thinking as of late.
Some of the most empty, lonely, miserable people have the most things accumulated in life, the most toys.
Right.
And because that becomes identity. But man, I'm telling you, some of the most fulfilled, you think of coaches you had in high school or middle school.
Yeah.
But they're heroes. They're people who people will never know who they are.
Right.
Man, so the people sometimes, and I'm saying sometimes you can have a lot of money, but if money has you, then you got some real problems.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of good with money.
It varies.
That's right.
From situation to situation.
Yeah, hey, money in itself isn't bad.
Yeah.
But whatever. But it's the people who there's high school coaches. I remember Ray Seals at Madison High School in Houston, Texas. Vince Young's high school coach.
Yeah.
I used to do chapel for their team, man. I'd go in this little bit smaller than this studio. Whole team would be in there. It'd be hot. I'd be dripping with sweat trying to get them fired up. They're about to get on the bus, go play, and I'm like about to pass out.
Dehydrated.
I emceed his retirement party.
Okay.
And you should have seen his former players come up and talking about Ray Seals. I mean, he impacted my life, and I was just his FCA guy that would come by his school.
Yeah.
But to see all his former players, guys that went to play college or not, talk about him, I mean, as the MC, I just sit down. I mean, I'm like, y'all just keep talking. You're talking about the life and legacy of a coach that poured into you, and you remember him for years. People will never forget Ray Seals. It was so powerful. He didn't have the most money.
Yeah.
I mean, I see him out there disciplining guys, like, making them run things over and over. Man, coach, you always making me run. Same guys up there thanking him. And so he has left a legacy. You mentioned Ray Seals to anybody who played for him, and they're going to be like, how much time you got?
Wow.
I mean,
let me take it a step further. Didn't mean to cut you off, but it's not even about the memory, but more so about the impact that he actually had on those individuals.
That's right.
All right, last thing I wanted to talk about. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately. So I'm in a class right now, 2 classes that I'm really, really glad I'm in. One's a writing course that my advisor signed me up for. I don't even know if she was aware of this, but it's a self-reflection course that requires you to be introspective, and you're writing about situations in your life that have impacted you. And I think it's really interesting because you discover a lot about yourself, what you like, what you dislike. And I was thinking about this the other day, and it kind of came to the conclusion that one of the things I really, 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 really dislike, I don't dislike many things.
Right.
I'm a pretty happy dude for the most part. Find a lot of joy in, a lot of different small things. But one of the things I dislike is this, I feel like we live there's a big paradox of mankind in the sense that we have people that are on one end of the spectrum striving so hard to find out what makes them unique, what makes them an individual, what makes them so different, and they want to basically obtain this thing, and they want to polish it, and they want to make themselves so unique. But then on the opposite end, we all want to be a part of something. Okay, I think there's a constant tug of war to find balance between those two, and that's what keeps you balanced.
Right.
But people that fall too far to one end of the spectrum, they get lost.
Right.
I hate seeing people who are on that other end of the spectrum when wanting to be included that will go out of their way to, they will go out of their way to compromise themselves to become something they're not, to be a part of something that maybe not even meant for them.
Sure.
You know?
Yep.
People that go out of their way to basically just try to fit in. I hate people that try so hard to fit in.
It's called a chameleon.
That is one of my biggest pet peeves when I see it. I've been seeing it lately with the whole AirPods thing. Nothing is AirPods. Nothing against Apple. I hope y'all give me a sponsorship. But like the whole AirPods thing, they went viral the other day. People started creating a narrative around them that if you didn't have them, you didn't have money. The narrative was created that if you don't have these AirPods, you're not cool, you're not this, you're not that. You know how it is.
That is so silly.
All of a sudden, the AirPods, Apple AirPods,
right,
skyrocketed. Everybody's buying them now.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was crazy that people created this narrative.
Wozniak's like, thank you. Thank you.
I thought they were stupid before, or not stupid, but I mean overpriced. They're like $200 for earphones. I thought they were overpriced. And it's like I've seen all
anybody got any extras laying around?
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Look your boy
I'll
up.
take some.
2 pairs.
I'll take some. But anyways, it's like, I don't know. That's one thing that I really dislike. It's just like when they fall too far to one end of the spectrum. And I mean, I'm guilty of it sometimes as well. Right. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm perfect, but I don't know. I try to stay balanced for the most part.
Yeah.
But what is something that just really rubs you the wrong way that people do?
Wow. What rubs me the wrong way?
Or let me kind of take it a step further. If you could change something about maybe how people act or how people think, how the world behaves as a majority,
right,
what is one thing that you would change?
I'm pretty easygoing, so not a whole lot bothers me.
Right.
But when people aren't walking in who they are called to be and the best version of themselves, I don't know if it irritates me a little bit.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's frustrating.
Because you want them to think differently.
Yeah, but then again, I've got to make sure that don't have this God complex.
Yeah.
Everyone has a journey.
That's true.
And everyone has to live this thing out, you know, to find out who they are. I'm wanting them to see it now. Like, man, don't you know, man, you have so much planned for your life, man. So
like, just figure it out. Yeah. It's easy. Yeah.
But then I got to look at my own self.
You're like, okay, let me calm down a little bit.
It took you a long time to figure it out too, Mikado. You better show some grace.
Yeah.
You know, you better show some mercy. I've learned this from when I'm younger. When I started off in this profession or whatever, I thought I knew it all.
Yeah.
The older I get, the less I know. So we got to learn to be lifelong learners. And I'll tell you one thing that I always struggle. I was always so judgmental. I've always found out, we've always been told this, we are a good, we're a judge of other people's sins, but we're a lawyer and attorney of our own. So I remember there was a time in my life, man, that I really struggled just being judgmental just about anything. Yeah. Anything and everything, little things, big things, whatever. Man, I just learned you're wasting a lot of energy. Learn to love people.
I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been a really fun podcast. Yeah. And then not only for the people who are listening, but you helped me grow. Even having this conversation with you, man, I think it's cool.
Iron sharpens iron, baby.
These are necessary.
The one thing that we didn't talk about is my sense of humor.
Oh,
bro, I'm a hilarious dude.
Well, tell them about it then, Mikado. I mean, this dude.
All right, 2 guys walking to a bar. No, I'm joking.
No, you are a funny guy, though.
See, people always. I want people to think, man. Look, I want to talk about the game. I want to talk about the fight.
Yeah.
Every time people talk to me, it's not gonna be a life lesson you learn. You're not gonna leave and go, "Oh man, that was so deep." And sometimes I'm standing right in the doggone shallow end.
Yeah.
And I just want to laugh, man. I love laughing. I love joking. I know when it's time to be serious, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, man, I want to have fun, man. Exactly. How you do life with people, man? Have fun. Have fun. Stop trying to be all serious. And for real. If they did, like OT and them, who's the funniest guy on the team? They didn't include me as part of the team. I would have been close to the top of the list.
Close to the top.
Guaranteed.
Mikado Hinson.
Guaranteed.
All right, we need confirmation on that, Otaro Alaka. If you're listening to this right now, brother, please confirm if Mikado Hinson is in fact in the top 5. I know OT probably put you top 5. Dalen Mack might argue and say that you not up there. I don't know.
Big Hawk.
Hey, Big Hamburger.
Big Hawk.
Make a hamburger helper. I don't know.
See, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. That's JD.
That's Mikado.
I'd be like, pot calling the kettle black. Calling you a big dude. I'm a big dude. People think Dalen's funny.
You said it like he's not funny.
Is he?
I mean, he's not a.
He's so likable.
He's more the Keith McGee factor. You know the Keith McGee. People not necessarily laughing with you, but you're a funny guy.
I love Keith McGee, man.
Towards.
I
love Keith McGee too.
I don't do that. I'm not that.
So you don't laugh at Keith McGee?
I don't laugh at Keith McGee.
Nothing he's ever done makes you laugh.
Yeah, but it's not at him.
You know what? I'm gonna completely go off on a tangent. We need to wrap this conversation up.
All right. People gotta see. I got a sense of humor, man.
Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you about something. I'm gonna do it off air though. Great having you on, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. What is your Twitter and Instagram so people can follow you?
They're both the same. At Mikado Hinson. KadoHinson. So
Hinson.
my name is Mikado, but people always cut off the M-I.
Ricardo. Gotcha.
Ricardo. Mikado.
Can you tell the Ricardo story on here? Or is he gonna two-piece you?
Listen, okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this out here. Ain't nobody gonna two-piece me.
Oh, okay, big dog.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we had a coach at one time.
Okay. Don't just right.
Who we had a recruit on campus.
Okay.
And so this coach was talking to this recruit, and I come up.
You can't say the recruit?
No.
Okay.
And I start sharing and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And this coach said, Ricardo does a great job for us. Ricardo's one of the best in the business. He's one of the best I've seen. And I'm looking around like,
what's his brother talking about?
Like, who's Ricardo?
Yeah.
That is something you've never let die.
Yeah.
But it's also humbling, man. I've been called Mikado. The other day, I was walking by, someone was like, hey, Mikado. And I just kept walking. I knew they were talking to me. Mikado. And I turned like, it ain't Mikado. I've gotten everything.
Mikado. What the mess?
One guy couldn't remember my name, and he called me Mr. M. Hey, Mr. M. I was like, for real? Yeah, I've gotten everything.
Hey, mister.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
The funny thing is, people make fun of my name. My brother's name's Chris.
Oh, wow.
So here I am with a Japanese.
How come he got
I got a Japanese name. I look Samoan.
I thought you were Samoan when I met you.
Of course you did. You want me to do the haka? If I could, I would. I love that Polynesian culture.
You seen that?
Oh, yo, I love the poly culture, bro.
I don't know how you do it, so don't laugh at me.
But but then my brother's name's Chris.
Oh, dang. You got it rough, huh?
But my son is Mikado Christopher Hinson. So I gave him my brother's. His middle name is my brother's name. So
I don't know why I never made the connection that MJ was Mikado Jr. I always thought MJ was MJ.
EMMJAY?
Yeah.
MJ.
Yeah. MJ.
And technically he's not a junior because my middle name is not Christopher.
So that doesn't classify you as a junior? That doesn't classify you as a junior?
Correct, because he didn't have my full name.
Really? I thought if it was just your first name, you were a junior.
They say that. They say, yeah, I don't know, maybe. But we no longer even call him MJ. We just call him J. So
you just called him MJ the other day.
I know, but normally I call him J.
Okay. I was just kidding about saying it the other day. Yeah, I had you. I could have pulled it off. I'm just playing, man. Good having you on, brother.
Yeah, brother.
This is a fun conversation. We got to do it again sometimes.
Yeah, we'll probably in about 300 more episodes. You'll have me on.
Stop playing with me, man. Like come on, brother.
Am I a little salty about that?
You were very salty. You were a top priority, brother.
The last shall be first,
and the first shall be last.
The first shall be last.
You already know what it is, brother. Hey, glad you came on, man.
Love you, brother.
All right, guys. Oh, hold on. Let me give you guys. Look, if you guys are listening to this right now or watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, like, leave a comment for me or my mans. Okay, leave a comment with any guests you would like to hear on the show or any topics you'd like to hear discussed. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, please subscribe, leave a rating and review. We're trying to build, man, trying to grow. You subscribe to our channel? That's a no. Don't be like him. Please subscribe to the channel.
How do I subscribe to it?
Brother, you got to make a YouTube account. You subscribe on YouTube?
No.
Make a YouTube account. You have iTunes. You have iTunes on your phone. Apple Podcasts.
Okay.
Okay, go to Apple Podcasts. Look up the Justin Dunning podcast.
Yeah, who needs a Joe Rogan podcast
I mean, yeah,
when you
Justin
got
Dunning.
the Justin Dunning
You know what I mean?
podcast?
You know what I mean?